Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the We Podcast. LOL, Dr. Art. LOL today. Of course, we like to laugh together. I'm not talking about lots of laughter. But today's episode is lots of languages. So I am Amanda, and I am here with Dr. Art. How are you, Dr. Art?
I'm good.
Are you excited to dive into our discussion about language and communication?
Definitely. That's very, intriguing, inspiring, and lot of confusion also.
Yes, absolutely. There's so much. Once again, we've chosen a topic. There's so much that we could talk about. But I like that we titled it LOL because we do always have a lot of laughs as well. So I guess it's fitting. Um, I think there's many places I guess we could start. But I always ask this first. How's the weather in Mumbai? What's the weather like?
What do you think? Hot?
I think I'm still living vicariously through you because it's still minus 13 in Ontario. Uh, and I'm
and
assuming
you
it's
make
still
me,
32.
and you ask me about the weather, and you make me switch off my AC for the podcast. This is not fair.
Well, this is a demonstration of lots of love that you give us by turning off your AC. This is how much Dr. Art is committed to you, dear audience, that she has shut off. We've shut off the heater on our end, and she shut off the AC, all for the audio quality. We're coming together.
Yeah, yeah. Let's come back to the topic.
Yes, yes. Well, so it's interesting to think about when we raised this topic. We said, okay, what will we talk about? We can talk about language, but it almost became a conversation about communication and how that goes beyond language, right? So I won't get ahead of us. We'll start with just talking about the easiest way that people communicate, which is language, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we're speaking English, right? Obviously, for the purpose of the podcast. It's also, ladies and gentlemen, because that's the only language I speak fluently. Uh, Dr. Art speaks three languages fluently. How many would you say? Four?
Yeah. So Hindi, English, Gujarati, and little bit of here and there Marathi. I can understand but not fluent in speaking.
Uh, uh, and what about Malayalam? Do you, do you speak
That
any?
I don't speak. It is very hard language. I don't speak,
Mm,
but I can understand like bits and pieces. Yeah, I know the word few words.
and folks, let's give some context for our Canadian listeners, our North
Yeah,
American listeners who might not know, because one thing I knew about India always was that there are many languages. But can you tell me how many like official languages are in India, and then how many languages are spoken?
yeah. So we don't have any national language like you have your first language and anything like that. That's what I know. But we have like 20 in India. We have 28 states and 8 union territories. And there was a census done in 2001 year where they said that there are 1635 rationalized mother tongues.
Wow.
But the major language, if you see, there are 22 major languages. Like some of them, I will not list all of them, but some
Hmm.
of them
We
are,
spoke of a couple.
Hindi, Gujarati, Malayalam, Kashmiri, Assami, Marathi, Nepali, Oriya, Punjabi, Sanskrit. There are many, Tamil. All these are like well known for all of us. Like we have each state has their own language. In that state also we have different lingo also. Like if you are in
Hmm.
Gujarat, like Saurashtra is one part of Gujarat, there is a different kind of the like the way we speak is different
Yeah.
pronunciation and the word collection. And the same thing if you go to Ahmedabad side, that is south of it, that is little bit different. So you can know if you are Gujarati that this person may belong to this region.
There's different ways that people will speak the same language depending on where they're from, like as almost like a regional sound. Uh,
Yeah.
that wow. So that number, folks, was 1,635 rationalized mother tongues. That's not a small amount. But that,
Even I was, yeah, even I was
yeah,
not, I was surprised, like, this many languages we have, yeah.
yes. That to me, that's very exciting. Like, it makes me think that I could learn my whole life and still maybe know a fraction of just what languages exist. Forget just the entire uh, uh, just like body of works of every kind of discipline. Like, there's so much to learn, but there's that much to learn in terms of language as well. Uh, so it
I think
now,
yeah, I think it's, if we dive into it, we will never get out of it. So it's
yes,
better, which select which one to choose, and
and
which one to
and go.
learn.
Well, I remember the first time I heard the phrasing going to school in English standard, Gujarati standard, and I came to learn that that was the primary, whatever primary language you're speaking. So if it's English standard, you're mostly speaking English at
Every
school. That's the
Yeah.
primary
So
language you're
syllables,
focusing
every
in.
syllables in English.
Hmm.
So if you are
Yeah.
in Gujarat state board means the state's official language. All the
Hmm.
curriculum will be in that language. So when I
Yeah.
studied, I was in Gujarati board. So my
Yes.
all the textbook and everything except the English one was
Hmm.
in, and Sanskrit one was in Gujarati.
Uh, and do you get to choose a second language? Like, I'll explain.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. We
T-
can, like, it's not, I have studied in my 90s, like, last I finished my 12th in 2000.
yeah.
So 2002, sorry. So that time it was like you can, in 10th standard you can choose either Sanskrit or Hindi, and like you have the options.
Hmm. Very nice. So in Canada, our Charter of Rights, protects two official
Mm-hmm.
languages, English and French. You find the majority of the country is English speaking first. There are certain
Mm-hmm.
provinces like Quebec, New Brunswick, where you see like a very high French speaking population, and like in Quebec, certainly there's more French first schools, meaning they're like French immersion, people are
Oh.
speaking French full time. But in South Quebec, more than North Quebec, you find a lot of
Mm-hmm.
bilingual folks, and even
Okay.
folks
Yeah,
studying in English first. Yeah.
like I have been there, so I know that I had to, even though to for the transit I was feeling like I know French and I was figuring it out from the sign and letters.
Yes. When you went to Montreal, right?
Montreal,
Uh,
yeah, I went to
yes.
Montreal and Quebec as well.
No, it's a beautiful province, and one thing that I very much like about our language laws is like you'll see a good amount of signage in Canada that is in both languages. Maybe not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily public signs, like businesses get to choose, right? So the business is going to go with whatever language is mostly spoken in that province, but all of our packaging, every like signs, when you hear official announcements, they're usually given in English and in French, and I very much appreciate that because it's something protected by the charter and something that uh, grounds Canada in an identity. Like if you go back to our colonial history, it was the French that colonized first, and then it was the British that came. So it's a conversation for another day, but it is very much rooted in our history of becoming a country. We were English and French speaking primarily first. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, um, and that but then what you also find, so I don't know how many other languages are in Canada, but a beautiful part of Canada as well is like our image to the world is that of being a mosaic, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we're like a cultural collection of different parts of the world. My family, for
Mm-hmm.
example, came after World War II from Italy, so
Mm-hmm.
um, like my grandparents speak Italian. I'd love to tell the world that I'm fluent in Italian. I'm nowhere near that. But I do my very best, especially when my grandmother has a request for me, or now sometimes she puts me on the spot. Uh, Yeah, this is why I love grandparents, because they test you, right? And they believe you're strong. So she'll say, I don't know this in English, and she'll look at me and say, I'm gonna say this in Italian. You'll know it, right? And I look at her and I say, I don't know. No. I said I'll try my best. But usually I can figure out most of what she's saying, which is good. But so officially in Canada we have two languages, and then you end up with a lot of those like a lot of secondary languages when people come from another country. Personally, I love that. I think that the more ways that we learn to communicate, the stronger we are, right? In general. But that's, I guess,
Yeah.
a way that we're connected to India, is that we also have
So,
lots of languages in that way.
but like in India also now, because of the English has been like, you like if you see
Mhm.
majority of the countries speaks English. So
Yeah.
that is the main language we encourage our kids or the everyone to learn. So
Hmm.
majority now the people opt for that education more than the region one,
Yeah.
just for making their life easier, because in English like it's a it has become a necessity. You should be fluent in English,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you want
We
to
were always
grow in
told
the
it was the language
education,
of
or if you want to
business.
grow in your career or xyz, like for many reasons.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. English. I didn't do any research into like the history of how this came to be, but certainly English is considered like the language of business. That, as far as
Yeah,
I've like heard again and again and again. Um, Interesting thing though that I have to say is, because I've started to, uh, I'm I'm very cautious about saying it, because I'm certainly nowhere near being good at speaking Gujarati or like Hindi in any way. But I've started to like try to learn sentence structures, and I'm listening to it a lot, to try to learn that. One day I would love to be able to have a conversation in Gujarati, even part of this podcast. That would be amazing. But the reason I bring it up is to say that as I'm studying it, I'm learning that the sentence structure, when you compare it to English, is like reversed. And it's,
reverse.
I have a lot of respect for people who learn English as a second language, because of the headache that I feel like this language must be for people to learn when you know any other language. I'm learning French right now, like to be more fluent. I learned it in school, but to be able to call myself fluent in French, I'm studying right now. And even French, when I look at the language, I think, oh my gosh, like I just hope people understand, when you learn English and it's not your first language, it just, did it throw you for a loop when you were learning it? Like, were you like, what's going on with this English language? Because I think that when I learn other languages now, I'm like, well, English,
Luckily,
what's
yeah,
going on?
luckily, I have been very, like, I find myself very, blessed that I had very good teachers, or the, like, one in schools, or one where we used to go for, tuitions, like, it's the
Yes,
extra, we go for lessons. There,
tutoring and
he,
yeah.
yeah, like, for, I still remember, who taught me English base. His name is Mr. Like, he's my teacher, English teacher. His name is Ashwin Sachdev. So he
Okay.
put the base
Hmm.
in me, and I still remember, I got, in 10th standard we had an exam, and I got 92 out of 100. So he gifted me a English Gujarati dictionary. So if I want to
Oh,
translate, yeah, if I want to translate words, I can learn in Gujarati, and then I can see in the dictionary,
yeah.
that and that
That's
made
a
me, that was a blessing for me for my MBBS, because the after clearing that, and I went into medical school, and it was like nightmare for me. I First lecture, I literally came home and cried that I don't understand any of it.
So that's an important point. I don't know if people know that. So when you go to medical school, is medical school always in English in India?
Everything, everything.
So even for oh wow. So that means that if you were learning in like a Gujarati state board like yourself, and then I know that you personally, you traveled a bit like for school anyways. So then by the time you get to university, now it's like studying, right, for MBBS, which is equivalent, folks here, you would say, like your family doctor. would be studying like
Yeah.
a MBBS
It's a
is the equivalent
first
in
base you
India.
clear as a
Hmm.
doctor. You that is the necessity. That is the basic thing.
Yeah, like the medical school is what we would
Yeah.
call it here, and then people can specialize from there in the
There.
Canadian
Yes.
system.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
But
Wow.
because I studied in state board, I faced that. But not all of people do that. They go from basic, like from 10th, 8th, they study in English only. So they get fluent by the time they reach medical
Okay.
school.
Uh, so, wow. So, two things there. First of all, that's such a smart gift from your teacher to give. Like, what a teacher gift to think, okay, I'm going to give you a gift, and this gift is going to motivate you to learn at an increased rate. He gave you a dictionary. He basically said, your gift from me as a teacher is the opportunity to endlessly learn the language now. So, that's a
And
very
only
smart
two
teacher.
people, yeah, and only two people got the gift because, like, first and the second, I was the second one. So it was like I still have that thing with me, and I love it.
It's beautiful, and then I'm happy too that it was very useful. But so okay, so you went to school learning Gujarati and then learned English as well, obviously, and then studied in medical school completely in English. As somebody who speaks a few languages, one of the questions I was thinking about for today, because we keep talking about English, right? We're doing this podcast in English, language of business. You're learning it in medical school. Do you agree that we should have one universal language? Or, and I'm not saying I agree necessarily. I'm curious about this idea, right? Is one language best for the world to agree that we should all learn it and communicate, or do we have an allowance for other languages? Because there's a lot you can't communicate in English too, for the record, folks. There's like whole concepts that we can't cover in English because there's just no words to translate from other languages.
So it's like, it's interesting concept, but where is fun in that actually? If you don't have to struggle. So,
Yeah,
what for language, what means to me is like a simple, non judgmental communication.
yeah.
And I think universal language will be, we are taking away so much good things which multilingualism gives us.
Mhm.
Like, it's, we each culture has its own speciality. Why to, break for just easy way out?
Yep. Yeah, yeah, I
It may be
understand.
like, for example, that's my perception. I don't know I'm right or wrong, but
Mhm.
imagine English I learned, but imagine I tell that Gujarati it will be the universal language if I am in the power, and if it is
Yeah,
choose, like, if someone gave me the choice and I have the
yeah. And
authority to
enough
change
people
it,
know it,
and I
and
give
yeah.
the order that Gujarati will be the universal language, everybody has to learn. Imagine half of the world will turn upside down.
Well, they'd have to learn it. I still can't get on the aura sound, the da sound. There's like,
So
I threw that
I
in there
don't
for folks
support.
that speak Gujarati.
Yeah, I
Don't
say
laugh.
multilingualism is fine. Like, if I'm going somewhere, if I'm moving to France, and then if I learn French, or if I'm moving to Canada and I learn
Yeah,
that is okay, because that is my personal choice to learn that. But we cannot. It's
yes.
no. Let's not. I should say that
You
we should
can't
not
force
force
people.
anyone to learn. That's what
Yeah.
I feel. I don't know.
Yeah. But see, and I think that's a perfectly reasonable answer, and it honors and respects a nation's ability to choose, right? So, like you
Yeah.
said, when you're in France, then you're going to try to learn French, right? When I go to Quebec, um, I don't expect people to know English as much as French. Do you know what I mean? And I don't expect
Mm-hmm.
that I should. That's not to say that people don't know English there. They absolutely do. They could speak English as well as me. But I understand that Quebec is a province that is like French first. That's just how they've always been. Just like Ontario is very much the province that's English first, right? So we just have an allowance even within our country. We understand that, um, and I respect that very much so. When I went to India, I didn't expect like people to speak English, even though a lot of people did and spoke it like very decently. I remember when we went. we went to see a movie. Oh gosh, I'll tell this story because it relates to
Yeah,
communication. We saw a few
donkey.
movies, and I'm gonna be very real because I was laughing at myself afterwards, but I got it in my head that there would be subtitles when we went to see this movie. I don't know why, like I just thought like, oh, maybe there will be
Because we
subtitles
are
that
used to that, because Netflix and everywhere it is official. But in like
yes,
where we went to see it, so it was very small town, so there
yes.
everyone expects that everybody knows English. It's like in, when you are in Quebec.
Exactly. So we go to the movies and I'm so excited I get to see a movie in India and the movie starts and there's no subtitles. And I'm sitting there and like a
Oh my
5-year-old
god.
child I start pouting because not and I wasn't like for the record folks like I wasn't like it wasn't a spoiled brat thing. I was so sad and disappointed in myself that I really thought that there was going to be English subtitles. Like what was I thinking? Like how entitled of me to be in another country being like oh, they're gonna know. They're just gonna know that they should have English subtitles in like a Gujarat. So, but the moral of the story too is I was still able to understand. We saw what 3 movies I think, and I was still
Yeah,
able to
yeah.
understand a good amount of it. And for anything I couldn't understand, folks, by the way, Guru was sitting next to me in the theater and was whispering every so often, "Hey, so they just said this. Hey, the joke was about this." So thank you because there was no I didn't have a chance to be confused. Like you helped me through that. You basically literally held my hand.
So I'm very fortunate that way, that because I understand your dilemma, because I have been in that. So I
Uh,
understand that. So I have been very fortunate that I have like multilingual friends. One of my friend is from Japan. When she visited India, I had the same experience, and she was so good. She didn't know Hindi. Her English was also like basic, but the
yeah,
way she used to communicate with my mom through body language, and they
yeah,
used to get it. Like my mom
yeah.
will ask her, "Did you eat food in Gujarati also?" And then she will nod because she'll understand what she's asking. I don't know how that was a magic of body language, I think.
Yes, and well, and I think too the power uh, of communication when you're talking about I don't know the specific stat. I was trying to look up what percentage of communication is nonverbal and it's a lot higher than the
What we
percentage.
think, yeah.
Yeah, so like talking about a universal language, we kind of already have one. It's body language. That doesn't really change. Like
Yeah.
there are nuances in culture for sure, right?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
certain poses and gestures mean certain things, but if someone's
Yes.
angry, it doesn't matter like what part of the world they're from. We can pretty much figure out that this person is
Yeah.
angry based
They're
on their
pissed,
body
yeah.
language, or like happy, or yeah, that's pretty universal. uh, but it's I love that you brought up mom because I have a story as well when we were visiting. So mom and dad speak English, like, and dad certainly very well for his profession, like speaks English, but mom uh, learned English like a lot, like built her confidence to be able to speak
Speak.
with me because I
Yeah.
only speak English, which I'm so incredibly grateful for. Like to me to watch that was just like I just felt very very loved just by that alone, because she didn't have to make that effort. But what I loved as well was when we visited, she still wasn't super confident about her English. And there was one day where her and I were like alone in the house together with dad, and you and Shiv were off somewhere that you had an errand to
We
run.
had to go, yeah, yeah.
Yes, and
I
but
remember.
the
And I
reason,
was
yeah,
quite scared, because I
yes,
was not there with you, and I was like, what if she's going to do?
yeah. So Guru was our translator, everybody. Like Guru is like because you're the eldest child in the family too, so you're always like the one, making sure the peace is kept and everything's fine. Like we're all good, but you're always there to help if needed, and I
I
always
think
appreciate that. Yeah.
I think I'm the
Uh,
anxious one in the family.
well, it's the habit of the eldest, right? But so Shiv needed you, so you were with him, and that was fine. And so mom and I found ourselves uh with an afternoon like where we had some time to spend and we were sitting outside together. um and I think we were both nervous, like, okay, this is the moment where if we're going to figure out how to have a conversation, it's going to happen now. And in like sort of broken English and with our hand gestures, we started to tell each other full on stories. Like mom told me full stories about her and her friends and the town, and I felt at the end of it like we were both speaking the same language fluently the whole time. There was no lack of communication because there was any lack of language. And it was the start of something really great because we were able to keep that broke the ice. Then now we can communicate, and if we're not sure, we just like find something and hold it up. Okay, what is this? This is the word I can't remember. Uh, and then like what a testament to how effectively you can communicate even if language is a bit of a barrier. It's what I was
And
thinking about when you're talking about Ari.
I still remember that day mom was like, how am I going to ask her to eat? I said, just show her the food and say, come and have, like, sit and say that you
Yeah.
have to go eat.
All she has to do is throw something down in the pan, and once I smell it, I'll be right at the table, or I'll be right in
So,
the kitchen beside her
so we
helping.
used to joke about this. Like we had seen one movie, Hindi movie, where like it's. I don't know if you have seen it. It's called Sing is Bling. In that, the main lead actress is from Romania, and the mother
Okay.
of Akshay Kumar was like Punjabi. So she didn't know other than Hindi and Punjabi. So she wanted to ask her, did you bathe? So she, bodily, she asked, did you bathe? So I told mom, like, that time I used to say that if she will marry someone who doesn't know Gujarati, you can speak like that. And it actually happened. I manifested that.
You're powerful beyond belief. Oh my goodness, that's so funny. Okay, so now that we've I guess broken the ice about moving away from language in terms of communicating. So the title of the episode, LOL, lots of languages, but some of those languages aren't spoken,
And
right?
I have
Even if you,
respect for all the languages. They
yes,
have their own, like,
yes.
uniqueness.
Very true. So, I guess I'll say one more thing about language that I know because my like grandparents are from Italy, is that even within Italy, there's many dialects. So there's only one like Italian, proper Italian they call it. But any part of Italy that you go to, the same way you say that Gujarati is spoken differently in different parts of Gujarat, Italian is spoken very differently in different parts of Italy. So much so that there are even comedians like Frank Spadone, who talks about his particular dialect, which is, I think it's Barez, that he speaks as being like anybody that's Italian. If you ask them about this dialect, it sounds so different from the other ones apparently. So, like my grandparents, some of them are from different parts of Italy, and even they would talk about each other's dialect as if they were talking about like it's almost becomes a totally different language. So even like that relates to this idea of nonverbal communication because it can even pour into the language, right? That how it must be something about what's happening, that how you're speaking and all of your customs are just so closely linked that it can actually morph the language itself, uh, which is very very cool. I want to pivot really quick because I don't want to forget about this. um, we were talking this week when we were planning the episode about different, like how animals communicate as well, because obviously if animals have a language, we don't know, we don't speak it, we're not fluent. But can you tell us
So,
about the waggle dance?
like, human are the only one who has languages. I don't know if I like sentenced it correctly, but have languages, I think.
Yeah,
But
yeah, we're the only ones
animals
who
don't
speak verbally.
speak. Yeah. So animals don't speak, but they communicate. Like I was reading about it a little bit because we were going to discuss, and I only brought it up because of Chloe. Like
Yes,
you and Chloe perfectly. You are living together and you are taking care
yes.
of each other since a long, long time. Without even
Chloe
speaking
is
a
the
word.
cat, everybody.
Meow.
Yeah,
That's it.
yes. Yeah. For
And
context, Chloe is a 13-year-old cat. Tiny, tiny, tiny cat that lives in my house. But yes.
so yeah, so when I read like they have body language like dogs, they
Yeah.
wiggle their tail, sorry.
Their tails.
So you
Yeah.
know that they are excited,
Yeah.
they sniff you, they
Yeah.
lick you,
They
they
pant.
give you kisses, yeah.
Yeah.
So that is the another way, and you can see when they are angry, they'll neglect you, they'll not, give you that excitement
Yes.
in their body language. And then
Yeah.
they make sound, vocation, I think vocalization, I don't know I'm pronouncing
Yeah.
it right or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they'll if they're something like that, they'll pronounce that you understand that they are in distress, something. So that
Yeah.
is one of the way they communicate. Then something they release use the chemicals as we call pheromones to communicate. By touch they communicate. And a interesting fact I wanted to share was like honeybees, they perform a waggle dance to tell other bees the direction of distance of a food source. This was new for me, like,
So
so
they dance as
interesting.
a
We think that we
yeah.
are the only smart ones.
Yeah. I just thought bees fell asleep in flowers, and we have all those cute pictures of bees like
And
with like face dived into a flower, but they have a
yeah,
dance too.
yeah, and it was so interesting. They have the movement of the dance like we
Hmm.
choreograph. There is a
Yeah.
literally choreography how they do it, and depending on the circle they form, the distance of food also they communicate that it is this far.
It's that precise. Wow. So
And I didn't
so
know about that. Like it was
yeah.
amusing to me.
I
So
didn't
many
know about
things
this
we
at
don't
all.
know. Yeah, like we
Hmm.
think we know everything, but we don't know. We know nothing.
Yeah.
We are
That's
very teeny
incredibly
tiny
efficient
part
too.
of universe that feels that, oh, I am everything.
Yes, it's well, it's easy to get lost in that. I don't know if that's just a human thing because I won't lie. Sometimes I catch Chloe sitting there thinking like that she's the queen of the world. So I don't know if she feels it too. But it's certainly true that when you can look at other species and see like that even a tiny honeybee has an immense importance and intelligence in its own way, uh, that puts things in perspective. Absolutely. Um,
And I think fish also has the waves, they form something. I didn't get into the details much because I was occupied. But like they
yeah,
also communicate with things, like they also, like if shark is coming, they have certain movements which other fish knows that
yeah.
they have to like dispose or hide away or something like that.
That's very interesting. Well, I know like I know that coyotes signal each other in a specific way, like when there's food. That's I didn't do any research for that, but I used to live like north of Toronto, where there were a lot of coyotes, and we always knew when they got something because you would just hear a chorus of the yipping and the yowling, and it was like their way of, I guess, alerting, right? And apart from that, they would just stay really quiet. And but I think there's a lot to learn about the ways in which animals communicate, like within their species, right? Within their like tribes, within uh, different regions that they're living in, and I guess maybe there is a universal language. It's just not English. Sorry, everybody.
So for me, the language is something, it's like if I'm communicating with you, you should understand that is the language.
Yes, that's it. That's it. Uh, as long as we're all
Message
able to take care
received,
of each other,
you know,
yeah, that's
that is the
it.
only thing. I know
The
it's not that
universe,
simple, but I wish it was simple.
yeah. You know what? I think it is simple. I just think it's not easy, right? I think that that's the best way forward. But I guess the only language, we just have to go back to episode 3. The only language is love. And how can we communicate being a good person and trying to show love. That's what I try to show up and do. um but I think we covered a lot of ground. We didn't do it in more than one language, but that's okay. We had more than one ways of communicating. uh, Folks, if you are listening to us and have been on this journey, again, thank you so much. Uh, I think we can wrap it here, Dr. Art. I think this was a nice exploration of language and communication, and sort of dipping our toes in the water once again in another topic. Um, I will once again give you the final word, as I did last week.
Yeah, thank you for that. Language, people learn the language which you want to learn, but just be compassionate towards each other if the person doesn't know the right grammar or right, because you
Yes.
should know where they are coming from. You should give them that benefit of doubt. You don't unrealize until you are in their shoes.
Hmm. Yes.
So I think the only thing you should do is communicate effectively, pardon the language.
I love that.
That's it.
Communicating. That's beautiful. Communicate effectively, pardon the language. That's where we're going to leave it. Folks, we will see you next week on the We podcast. I'm Amanda, and I'm here with Dr. Art. Take care, everybody.
So one for my city, two for my city. God knows what I wouldn't do for my city. Three for my city, four for my city. No, I'm the one who'd go to war for my city. Five for my city, six is my city. Holla at me if y'all vibe with my city. Come try on my city, don't you lie in my city. Symbol of truth, I'll fight for my city.
The West East podcast is part of the We campaign, also known as Anti-East Indian Hate Campaign by Vairagya Entertainment. You can weigh in on the conversation in the meantime in our comments section or on our social media. You can also visit www.imshivam.net/w.e. Remember, Vasudev Kutumbakam. We are all one family. Until next time.